In our last lesson, we talked about how to read files, ETL statements, and how to use group by, order by, in how to use aggregate functions with our group by, and how to also customize our read button. So we talked about the use of in and or. We talked about the use of between and not between. And then we talked about logical operators and the results that we get using or and. So today we are going to continue from where we stopped, and we are going to be talking about joins. Joins is very essential to our database. Oftentimes, our database, our tables will be named differently. We have tiny bits of information scattered all over our database, and we need to combine those information to make a much more meaningful sense. So still using AdventureWorks, we have our connection, and then we have the database already selected. So the database that the joins that we're going to be looking at, I'm going to be looking at inner join. We're going to be looking at how to join. We're going to be looking at self-join. We're going to be looking at right join. We also have rejoin. So now let's take each of this as a case study. Now the inner join. Remember in set notation, when we have set A, just gonna put set A here. And we have set B. This part of your set, we call it the intersect, right? So this part is what we call inner join in SQL. So which means if we have, for example, now I'm just gonna draw a new one. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. I have 3 here in the middle because 3 is common to A and B. So 3 is common to A, 3 is common to B. This is why I have 3 in this middle. So inner join in essence would mean that I have a table A and a table B, and the common data they have is what I have in the middle here. So in this essence will be 3. So anytime I use inner join, I only expect SQL to return the values that they both have in common. So which means if I perform inner join on A and B, the only value that is going to return is 3. If I perform left join on this same table, now this table by my left hand side, this A, table A is my table on the left. This here is my table on the right. So let's talk about inner join first, and then we're going to come back and talk about this other joins. So we've said that this 3 is my inner join. So now let's try to read table. I'm going to load the human resource employee. This right here. Let's just say select everything from human resource. And I'm going to name this human resource employee as HR. So that every time I want to call human resource employee, I'm just going to say HRE. And I'm going to say, I'm just going to pick, let me say, let's just pick maybe person to person, thereabout. Just gonna say, select everything from, and I'm going to name this person to person PP. So I can either use this as PP or I can just say PP just next to the table name. It literally means the same thing. So I'm going to read this table now, information. And we can see that in this table, I have business entity ID. I have the national ID. I have a whole lot of other columns there. And if I look at the other table, which is this, let's call this one to increase this. I have business entity ID also. So anytime I want to perform a join, I have to ensure that both tables have something in common. So I've looked at the first table here. It has the business entity ID. I've looked at the second table here. It has business entity ID. So it means they have something in common. So when I want to join the two tables, in this context now, I can say human resource is table A. The person table is table B. The first table that you reference is always, the first table that you call is always the one on the left side. The second table that you call is always the one on the right side. So in this, looking at this Venn diagram, I will say that my human resource is A, which is on the left side, and my person is B. Though looking at this now, I've not performed any join on it, but by the time I start joining them together, that's the shape it's going to take. So to join these two tables together using an agile, I'm going to say select. If I want to select all the columns, I'll say start from, and then I'm just going to copy this path here, paste it right here, and then I'm going to say image join, and then I'm going to put the name of the second table here. I don't need to do select again. So the next part of this join, which is the crucial part, is SQL wants to know the table, the column they have in common, because I'm going to be joining these two tables on the column they have in common. So I'm going to say on. So I already put an alias to this table as HRE. So I'm going to say HRE dot. So putting a dot there then shows me the columns I have in that table. So these are the columns I have in that table. And the only column that tallies with the second table I'm working with is this business entity ID. So I'm going to pick that business entity ID and then PP dot again, which is this person dot person, which is now a short, which the alias is now PP. So every time I want to reference person or person. I don't need to write person or person again. All I have to do is to type the PP. So if I put a dot, it shows me the columns I have in that table also. So the one that matches with the other table is business entity ID. I'm just going to pick that now. Then I end this with a column. Now, when I run this now, the result I get is like the result of this Venn diagram here, which is just these three. So all the records in this first table is assumed to be this 1 and 2. All the records of this second table is assumed to be this 4 and 5. And the result of what I'm getting now is this 3 in the middle, because it only returns records where the records that match all the business entity ID in the HR table that are in the person.person table. So if there is a person in the HR employment table that does not have a business entity ID in the person.person table, such person will not be included. Additionally, if there is a person in the person business entity table and that person is not on the employee table, such person will also not be included. This is what I mean by this 1 and 2 will not be included in this. This 4 and 5 will not be included. Why? Because 4 and 5 is not in A, 1 and 2 is not in B. So it will only return records where it finds 3 in this A, 3 in this B. So which means that it will only return record where you have business entity ID in the column HRE, which is short for human resource employment employee, and column PP, which is it has a business entity ID in the person or person table. Now, if you scroll down now on the person on the business entity ID, you will not find a null value there because it's matching against values that exist. Now, all the records that you get from this first side up till here, just before the business entity ID, they belong to this human resource employee, which is HRE. All the records you now find on this other side here, business entity ID and all of this other information is from the person table. So you can see at the beginning, you have business entity ID here. You also have business entity ID here. So when you check the record of each of these rows, you see business entity ID 1 is matching with business entity ID 1 in the second table. Business entity ID 2 is matching with the business entity ID 2 on this table. You can see that. Business entity ID 3 is matching with business entity ID 3 here. So this is why they only select the records that have matching rules. So that being all said and done, if you wanted to pick have a change in the if you wanted to have a change in the records that gets returned, just gonna get rid of this. So so join all being said and done, let's talk about left join. So I'm going to draw that again. I'm just going to draw the first circle. Where is it? Okay. So I have A and B. Just gonna write A. I'm gonna write B. So my left join, just gonna say 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. My 3 is looking at some things. So my left join is going to return all the records from the left hand side, which means the first table that I mentioned. So which means all the records 1, 2, and what it has common with the second table. Sorry, this is right one. So it's going to return 1, 2, which is all the records of A, and what it has matching with B, which is just this 3. So what this means is that when what this means is that when I choose a right join, so a left join this time around, when I choose a left join for this, it will return all the records of this table and what it has matching on this table, which is in this context 3. So if I run this now, make it and run, it returns all the records from this table and it returns matching records from the other table. So you often see a lot of null values from the other side. So in this context, I have 290 records, but here I should have, depending, might have lesser. So I still have 290 records then. So if I just copy this and apply right join, run this again, scroll down. So now this is picking all the records from the right table, which is the second table that was mentioned, and only matching records from the left. So for this one, I have 19,972. What my right join is doing is that it's taking all the records from the second table, which is this B, so this 4, 5 will be taken, and what it has matching with the first record, which is just this 3. So you find that all the rows that are in column B will be included, and only matching records from column A will be added to it. So you find that you have missing values from the first table, because if the records in the second table does not match the record in the if the record in the second table does not match the record in the first table, that means there are no values there, to return null. So, but then all the records in the second table will definitely be returned. Why I'm getting a null is that when you look at the second table now, this business identity, they don't have any record in the HR table. So this is why for if you see a null is that there's a record in the second table that does not have any corresponding information on the first table. So you get a null value for this one. You would often find yourself using left join most times. A lot of people don't really use right join. And why is that? It is the table arrangement that makes one table more favorable. If I change this table arrangement now, which means if I copy this table now, or just cut it, however you want to put it. If I cut this table now, and I cut this table, I paste it here, and I cut this one, and I paste it here, still leaving the on the way it is. If I run it now, you see I'm going to get the same result I got when I applied the left join. So yeah, so you can see that I get 290 records. So which is the same thing I got when I executed this. So basically the write and join, the effect is not really write and join per se, it's the arrangement of the table. If I change the arrangement of the table of this left join and I make person table first, and I make this other one second, it will return all the records from person and all the results from person. This means I'm going to have 19,000 rows being returned. So it's the arrangement that makes it left or right. So whichever table you want to preference, if you want SQL to preference the first table that you have mentioned, then you use left join. If you want it to preference the second table that you have mentioned, then you want it to use the right, then you want to use the right join. So it's the table that you want to preference that determines which join is appropriate for use, if it's left or right. But for full join will return all the records from the left, all the records from the right. So full join is basically like the combination of the left join and right join. So if I just copy this now and I paste it elsewhere and I say full join will give me a result of 19,002 because it's going to return all the records from the first table being mentioned, all the records from the second table being mentioned. So, and you know that it's the second table, which is like, sorry, this person, the person has the highest number of rows, so you get 19,000 as the result. So that's basically what full join is. So if you are working with the table and you want to return all the records from both tables, full join will be your best option to do that. But just to have at the back of your mind that you often have null values being included, because if you don't have matching records in these tables, you get null for those entries. So we talked about null, we talked about right join, we talked about left join, and we talked about inner join. Let's look at outer join. So I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to say outer.
What happened?
Checking it now. So outer join will give so an outer join in this regard. I'm just going to draw another annotation here. So use that. So this is what outer join will do. So I have table A. Sorry about my circling space. It's not the best. Just going to select table A here and table B here. So we know that inner join will give us all the results here. So the inner join, the outer join is going to return the result of this, which is if I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here, the outer join will return all the results that are common and the ones that are not related to any of this table. So, for example, now in this case now, it will return what we have common depending on the first table that you have mentioned. If you've mentioned A first, it will return 1, 2, 3. If you've mentioned B first, it will return 3, 4, 5. So oftentimes you will not use outer join in this regard. You will use outer join with the side that you want to favor. If you want to favor the first table, you will say left outer join. If you want to favor the right table, you will say right outer join. So there is no outer join, like outer join joins. You have to favor one side of the outer join. So it's in real context, just going to grab this annotation. So in real context, you will not have outer join in this context. You will either have left join. So what this left join here means is left outer join. And what right join means is right outer join. So when you see outer join, it's either it's a left join or it's a right join. But when you try to perform the joins and say outer join like this, SQL wants to know which of the outer join do you want to perform. Is it the left? So if I run this now, it knows I'm talking about the left outer join. So it will preference all the records on the first table that is mentioned and return matching records of the second table, which is 3 in this context. So whether you say left join or left outer join, it literally means the same thing.